Welcome to the Just My Mom Sense podcast. I'm not an expert, I'm just trying to figure out parenting and in turn myself while sharing things I've learned with all of you. Welcome, Mark, to the Just My Mom Sense podcast.
Thank you, Jen. Thanks so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
So, for those listening that don't know you, can you imagine that there are people that don't know you?
Probably 98% of the world. Yes, probably.
Can you tell us about yourself? Who are you? What's your background? Tell us all about you.
Wow. My professional experience is probably the most relevant, although I do enjoy cornhole, a good cornhole game. I was a teacher, a special ed teacher in a school for the deaf for 30 years. And within that structure, I had a bunch of different positions. So I got to work with kids from like 2 years old to 18 years old, all its range. And I had a few different jobs. I was a home ec and tech teacher, and I was a regular special ed classroom teacher. I did plays with the kids for 27 of the years that I was there, and that experience doing the plays particularly was an incredible experience because I got to work with all the kids in the school, and so it really opened my world up to everybody's experience. And I got to see kids who would struggle in the classroom and flourish on stage and gain confidence from that. And that was a real lesson for me in how I approach education in really working towards kids' strengths. And when I work with parents, that's what I try to encourage in parents, to be mindful of their child's strengths, not just the things that they can't do. We'll get into that. But how, but as far as the teaching part goes, I had a lot of different types of students, from just your average deaf kids to kids with learning disabilities to then more physically and emotionally involved kids with learning disabilities as well. It came a lot with the territory in the deaf world because of the language challenges. Since 2018 is when I retired from the classroom after 30 years, and I continued to work with now two different agencies, both as sort of a tutor, a SEIT, a special ed itinerant teacher, going into homes, working with kids with behavior issues, some kids with some academic issues, to work on some of that with them. But most of the work that I did directly with the kids, and they, on average, they turned out to be autistic as opposed to any other disability that we want to talk about. They had some behavior issues that was the focus, to get them regulated at home,
Mhm.
helping the parents to become better managers of the home. And so establishing schedules and routines was the first thing I always did when I got there, was to get
Mhm.
parents a routine and get them in that mindset that their kids function better when they knew what was to expect.
Yeah.
And so that was how I started working in the homes with families.
Mhm.
And then as I was going through that, I was really observing for the first time in the home how life was for parents
Mhm.
and the challenges and the difficulties that they were having. And it became an interest of mine to focus on that and say, this is an area and a population that's not getting enough attention as far as I know.
Mhm.
And I knew parents in the school when I was teaching, but you weren't in their home. So you could know minimally things that they would confide in you. However, when you see it on a daily basis and you see the actual functioning and dysfunction, then I wanted to help. And so my focus became parent education, parent coaching, parent tutor, parent training, whatever you want to call it. And that was where I began to working with the agencies to get more of those type of clients as opposed to working with the kids. I still enjoyed working with the kids, but I was kind of getting burnt out. I mean, over
Hmm.
30 years of it, I was kind of getting burnt out and I wanted to move into a different direction. And then when the pandemic happened, I had to find new ways to use what I knew. And I ended up starting a website and a blog. We can talk more about that later, but that's kind of where I've been professionally and
Hmm.
where I land today, still working with some parents, and I have two student clients yet, but I've had them for a couple of years now. So
Hmm.
there's they're just kind of hanging in there.
Going back even further, what even led you to special education?
Right. Well, I was not interested in education or even thinking education in college, and I got my bachelor's in communications and ended up working in a PR firm in Manhattan for 3 whole months, and that didn't work out.
Hmm.
And on my way to that job every day, I would pass a school, and I just was felt compelled constantly to
Hmm.
like that just felt comfortable to me, you know.
Yeah.
And I was really interested in sign language. I didn't know any. My cousin is deaf. We grew up together, but we'd only see each other a couple of times a year, so I wasn't exposed to his world.
Hmm.
He actually went to the school that I ended up teaching at, and he graduated prior to me working there.
Hmm.
And I remember when he found out that I was learning sign language, it's like he lit up. He couldn't believe that
Yeah.
we could actually communicate with each other. It was such a cool thing. So that job ended, and I just said, I'm going to just go for it. I'm going to go to school to be a
Hmm.
teacher. And I got into a master's program and got my special ed degree. And it just seemed to kind of, and when I went to visit this school and I wanted sign language. So
Hmm.
I didn't know anything about it. I remember going to meet with the superintendent. She's like, "Do you know anything about what you're wanting to do?" I'm like, "No."
Nope.
So
This is what I
I
want to do.
this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I observed a couple of classes that day, and I got into a sign language class that night.
Mhm.
And with 5 hours of sign language, I got hired as an assistant. And so,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I was learning on the job. My students would teach me, and they gave me my sign name, which is a reference to fencing because I used to fence in college, and I brought all my equipment in, was showing them how
Hmm.
the poses and stuff. And one of the kids took my hand that was hanging over my head in that position, and he made an M out of it and put it to my temple, and that became my sign name for all these years. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
And the deaf community, you have to be named by a deaf person. You can't create your own sign name. And
Interesting.
that was a cool gift.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And it's a cool little journey that you had, especially that you were on this one path and it was like, just kidding. I'm not doing that. I don't want any part of that.
It's true. I was really thinking media, somehow being in the media world, whether it was movies, something behind the scenes or in front, because I was acting at the time too. And
Yeah.
so all those options were on the table.
Yeah.
And then the job started to happen, and I just felt like that's where I belonged. And acting was a long shot. And
Yeah.
so I went with the sure thing, kept my feet
Yeah.
in acting for a few more years after that. But I ended up just staying with the teaching because it
Yeah.
just felt right and I could impact more. And I think what I learned was that for me, the actual teaching of the academics was the last thing I was interested in. I didn't
Uh-huh.
like it. I liked the relationship and the development of the kids, helping develop their personalities and
Yeah.
helping them function. And that to me was way more the draw for me. And
Yeah.
so I kept at it. And as I said with the plays, I got to know a lot of these kids, and that was an opportunity to help develop them too as people through
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
that was my major reward in all those years was getting to know the kids and being hopefully a positive impact on them. And I've had kids now find me because I had to go into the social media world with the podcast,
Yeah.
and now I'm out there. So they have found
Mhm.
me, and
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
been so incredible what they've given
Yeah.
back to me through these last few years of finding me and telling me what it meant to work with me and grow up together was really
Yeah.
it's really amazing. I couldn't think of a more rewarding thing to
Yeah,
ever.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that is cool that I know because I know you personally, I know that you were hesitant to join the social media world, but that is a benefit of the social media world that now you've been able to reconnect with so many people and they're able to tell you what you've meant to them.
It was definitely something that I that was very, like you said, I was very hesitant because
Hmm.
she just, putting your stuff out there. And then I just said, look, if I want to have a positive effect on people, I'm going to have to put myself second here.
Hmm.
I have to back off. And so that certainly wasn't anything I expected, was to have former
Hmm.
students find me and want to reconnect and tell me the things that, I mean, I had one student take me through his home remotely, and he had saved a, I literally made a Xerox copy of my hand. My
Hmm.
ring was on it, and he had the Xerox copy of my hand still. How he got it, I don't know. He had plays, we had that script still from our play
Yeah.
days, and he became a part-time actor. And he said, I owe this all to you. And he's married
Oh,
with a son who is like so into the social media. He's got his own podcast, his own YouTube channel. I mean, the kid's like 13.
yeah.
He's out there meeting, interviewing people like you do. When you go to
Yeah.
meet people from the 90s, he goes to these kind of cons,
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
are, and then he interviews these people just as you do.
Yeah.
And he's this guy, and he
That's
looks
so
just like his
cool.
father when he was a kid too, which
Yeah.
totally freaks me out.
Yeah. That's
But
awesome. That's
yeah,
very cool.
it's
And you got to keep that creative side of you as you were teaching and doing theater, and
yeah.
you got to incorporate it, so you kind of had the best of both worlds then. So,
I owe it to the administration who were so supportive and open. I don't think in any of the latter administrations that I ended up working under would I've had the same opportunities. I had Sister Catherine and Sister Eileen were these two nuns, the superintendent and principal,
mm,
who were very enthusiastic about movies and they loved actors and all that kind of stuff. So they got behind me. And when I started doing the plays, they they gave me carte blanche, and it was because of their openness to giving me that space.
yeah.
I was able to, yeah, incorporate that part, which enriched the whole experience in a way that I don't know that I would have enjoyed teaching as much had I not had that. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
very unique experience in a very unique school,
Yeah.
which then changed dramatically towards the end. It was very, very
Mhm.
different place, and just there was no room for that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's very cool. So now that you have been in the classroom for many years and now in homes for not as many years,
Mhm.
what are some of the differences that you have noticed working in the classroom versus working in the home?
Well, in the classroom, we didn't have great curricula in the
Yeah.
deaf education. It was a lot of recreating and reinventing the wheel,
Mm,
and when philosophies came and went and all that kind of stuff. So having some set of curriculum and some set of guidelines to have to follow. Yes, there that probably made things a little bit more, at least you knew what was coming.
yeah.
So that part, the relationships again were the most important part to me, because developing the relationship is how you get the kids to respond and how you get the
Mhm.
kids to want to work for you.
Yeah.
They have that trust, and they know
Hmm.
that that you're there for them, and that I find carries into the home. It's
Hmm.
about the relationship and the connection. The difference is being that at home, you know, families don't have the wherewithal off the bat, right? So
Hmm.
they're thrown into a world where they don't have the education or the background, and they're forced to swim.
Yeah.
And depending upon the school system and where they are in the country, they may have more or less support. And
Hmm.
so, and a lot of things go with that, as far as finding advocacy and becoming an advocate for your own child. Those are all things that you have to learn over time, and you have to have people encourage you, because some people are born natural advocates and they're going to fight for everything for their child, and others aren't.
Hmm.
And you have language barriers from people who are from different countries, and so who kind of get walked over. And I would
Yeah.
see in meetings and IEP meetings where they would just accept everything that was told to them because they didn't know, they were afraid to challenge, they didn't have the language to challenge. So as far as the differences go, I think the parents not being as prepared, and me having to try to find a way to get the knowledge to them and get them trusting that they can do this stuff, because there's a
Hmm.
lot of parents that feel like they can't do it.
Yeah.
And there have been parents that have just given up with me because they've either they didn't want to be told what to do anymore, or
Yeah.
they just knew that they didn't have the facility to do it. And
Hmm.
that was unfortunate. Those times were unfortunate for me because I feel like if you just stay open, there's a way there, and it
Hmm.
sometimes it just takes longer,
Yeah.
and that's where time, patience, and consistency comes in.
Hmm.
Everything takes time. I remember I came to develop a rule for myself with my new students. Like it was a 3 month arc of
Hmm.
learning that. Who I got at the beginning, in 3 months, I expected that there would be a big difference and that they would be able to then follow how I was approaching the
Yeah.
classroom and managing the classroom and what was expected of them. And it typically worked that way. And so
Yeah.
that was the time. You have to be patient, give things time. You need to let go of a lot of things,
Hmm.
expectations. And we can get into that with the mindful parenting program that I have in
Yeah.
talking about, meeting your child and accepting your child and also
Mhm.
meeting yourself and accepting yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in the classroom, there's the expectations. In the home, there's the hopes. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily expectations. I mean, parents have goals,
Yeah.
and I guess they expect if you're there to help them, then maybe that is an expectation. But what I try to do is say, let's keep this as a goal and we
Hmm.
work towards it, but we have to let go of the expectations and follow your child's path.
Yeah.
And that's where similarities are because both in the home and in the classroom, you have to pay attention to the person in front of you,
Yeah.
right? Not
Yeah.
not every child's the same. No one's
Yeah.
the same. So everybody has different ways of learning and different ways of getting through to them as human beings. And you have to have the patience and the time, take the time and have the patience to allow that to kind of surface so you can meet who that person is.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's the key for parenting, results. We're very result oriented, and it's letting go of results and reminding ourselves that, like, real growth, it's not going to come from pressure, right? We can't
Hmm.
pressure it. If you're present and you're open and you're
Yeah.
allowing this person to be and listening to that person,
Hmm.
that's going to give them the optimum opportunity to be able to
Yeah.
grow and become their best self. And
Yeah.
so getting rid of these results, grades, and behaviors, and all this kind of stuff, and milestones. We can shoot for those things,
Hmm.
right? But we have to allow the child to show us who they are,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then go with their strengths.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
And I think that's the probably a tough thing for most parents to kind of drop the expectations. I know there's a lot of memes or, TikToks or whatever of funny parenting things of like, oh, when I have a child, they'll eat whatever I make them and they're not going to have McDonald's or they're not going to have what McDonald's is not a sponsor of this podcast. Whatever it is. And then you have the kid and you're like, okay, what will you eat? I'll just give you whatever you want as long as you're eating food and growing. Like, I don't care anymore. But
right.
there's so many people still hold on to certain expectations or and not in a negative way or not in a bad way or wanting to set their child up for failure, but well, I'm having these children and this is what I wanted for them and this is what I want to experience with them. And
Yeah,
sometimes you're not going to go on that journey with them, but you can go on this different journey that is still going to be amazing and benefit both of you in the end. Um, can
yeah.
you talk more about your mindful parenting program?
Okay. Well said. Number one, because yes, it's not the journey we ever expect, right? We
Yeah.
we don't control things, and so
Mm-hmm.
we can have hopes and dreams, but we have to be where we are.
Yeah.
And so with mindful parenting, that is a big part of it. It's not necessarily about being, the calmest. It's just about being present. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the quote that I kind of use as the central focus of the mindful parenting for me is by a man named Viktor Frankl, who was a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, and he was in multiple concentration camps, Auschwitz being one of them. And so he came up with this quote: "Between stimulus and response, there's a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." So what he's saying basically is we have a stimulus, and
Mm-hmm.
often our reaction is immediate, and
Hmm.
it may not be well thought out, right? Because we react. So the guideline is to kind of take like 5 seconds if you can.
Hmm.
And this takes practice, obviously, right?
Yeah.
It's a reimagining of how you think about interacting with people. And so to just take that little space, there's that space that allows you to decide how you want to respond as
Mhm.
opposed to how you want to, and as opposed to just reacting.
Yeah.
And so that gives you an opportunity to make a decision and a choice. And therein lies the key for me when it comes to the mindful parenting. It's being mindful of that space and being mindful of your response. And there's a lot of freedom in that because I
Hmm.
think, you have a lot of opportunities to go in really good directions. When we react, oftentimes it's yelling or it's no or it's snapping, those kinds of things that it's just going to shut anyone down.
Yeah.
I never understood how anybody thought parenting it was a good thing, um, to be yelling all the time and snapping all the time and threatening all the time. I mean, yeah, you make it. The kids may do what you want them to do, but they're going to be doing it with a lot of fear.
Yep. Exactly.
I do want to say that I'm not a parent and
Hmm.
I've never had children of my own, and so to speak, about parenting is, might be offensive to some people. I do know as a teacher, I mean, I lost my patience many times, and it was
Hmm.
a lot of years of learning that those reactions they were useless. They didn't do me any good, And it was really about listening to the kids, and that's what I learned to do over time was to give
Hmm.
them the space to express themselves. Once they expressed themselves, then they didn't feel as needy,
Yeah. Yep.
to get my attention.
Yeah.
Uh,
We all grew up in a time where our emotions as kids weren't really talked about. We didn't talk about our emotions. Our
right,
parents were raised even more differently than, my parents raised me. And each generation gets better and learns more. But it just wasn't, the kids were seen and not heard more often. There was maybe starting to be those cracks in changing some generational habits, but
right.
we still grew up in the time where a lot of that was not changed. So I do feel as adults, as teachers, parents, we're trying to um, change those things in real time almost, where
You-
your instinct is maybe to react a certain way because this is how I grew up, or this is triggering for me, or this is how
Sure,
my parents would have reacted, or whatever it is. And you're kind of having to switch it in real time.
exactly.
When you're working with parents, how do you help them overcome that and become
Mhm.
more mindful so that they feel empowered to take those 5 seconds?
Right. Because, when we're raised that way, that's how we're trained, right?
Yeah.
That's what we
Hmm.
know. And so it makes total sense.
Yeah.
And as we were raised and learned that, we have to relearn, right?
Hmm. Yep.
There another path, another way. And
Yeah.
there is another way. And I feel like this mindful path is a way that really takes a lot of the pressure off you because you're you don't have to be perfect. People hear
Mhm.
mindful and they just run away from it, number one, probably because they think it's just kind of like this hippy
Yeah.
dippy thing.
Yeah.
It's really about gaining sort of an emotional presence for yourself.
Mhm.
And again, as I said, you don't have to be calm all the time.
Yeah.
You just have to be present. Just be there and listen and accept who you're dealing with, right? And the more we can accept, then the better chance we have of being
Yeah.
able to communicate what we need. Now, this is there's so many ways you can go with this because
Mhm.
every kid's different, and there's going to be a lot of kids with a lot more challenges that it's going
Yeah.
to make it more difficult who maybe can't communicate so well. And so it's about having some sort of, again, process that parents can go through and setting up a schedule and a routine and depending upon the severity having reward systems built in, sort of
Mhm.
management systems built in. So it's going to vary, but
Yeah.
at its core, it's about being present and accepting who you're dealing with, right? And
Mhm.
allowing them to be. And so basically I created this mindful protocol, and what they basically, it's mindful, and M is for mindfulness, I is for intentionality, N is for nurturing, D is for development, F is for flexibility, U is for understanding, and L is for learning.
Mhm.
So when we're mindful, we're not reacting or responding, right? And it's an opportunity to model for our kids. If
Mhm.
we're able to be calm in those moments, then it's going to be able to, kids respond to our energies, right?
Yep.
And so if they see that you're jacked up and
Mhm.
angry, it's going to make them very, very uncomfortable and anxious and things like that. One thing I will say is that I had a bout with anxiety in my, what was it, 40s, 50, whatever it was, 10 years ago. Yes.
Mhm.
Barely, just literally on the borderline. And
Somewhere around there.
literally 40s, 50s. And that experience was one of terror for a little bit, but it also was an opportunity to stand back and observe. And that's where I kind of learned that that's where mindfulness plays in too. It's about observation as well, right? So we're looking at the situation as opposed to reacting to the situation, and we're allowing ourselves to respond to the situation. So I was able to step back and look at this person who was just collapsing in front of me
Mhm.
and be like, wow, that's fascinating, right? So let's get to know what this is all about. And it
Mhm.
allowed me a little more insight into my anxious students
Yeah.
who would come into school and my kids with autism who had some real anxiety issues and suddenly be able to understand and relate a little bit more. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, we always used to joke, I just want to get in that kid's head for 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
just how they see the world. And so
Mhm.
for me, this was like one way that I was able to kind of get into their world a little bit. And
Yeah.
so that made me a much more compassionate. I was compassionate always, but this made me super compassionate and it made me super patient.
Mhm.
Again, pretty patient, maybe extra patient.
Yeah.
And then I was able to give them the space that they needed
Mhm.
because it's like, okay, so I know in some way or another, you're going through something that I can relate to,
Yeah.
whatever form it's taking for you. So let me give you that space, take
Mhm.
that time, right? And I think that's what we need to allow our kids to have is that space, right?
Yeah.
And we just need to be clear with how we communicate.
Mhm.
And so as long as we're clear, then we can be confident in ourselves that we're doing the best we can,
Yeah.
right? Because part of the problem for parents, the emotional aspect is, never knowing if you're doing the right thing.
Mhm.
I mean, I have parent friends who've raised kids with special needs or, regretting the decisions they made when the kids were young and the path that they ended up taking. I mean, all you can do is the best you can do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you have the present options in front of you and
Mhm.
you just pick and that's it. And so we have to really be forgiving of ourselves as parents, or you have to be forgiving of
Yeah.
Uh, because, it can really get you to a place where you end up feeling very isolated and alone because you can find yourself removing yourself
Mhm.
when you're raising kids with special needs, you find yourself, your world can get very small.
Yeah.
And so I feel like when you're mindful, you're being present, you're accepting your child for who they are, you're
Mhm.
being clear in your communication, you're nurturing your child, right? Because you're loving on them as much as you can, even in
Yeah.
the hard moments. And there are plenty of hard moments.
Mhm.
And you're supporting not only their growth, but by being mindful, you're supporting your own growth,
Yeah.
right? Because you're allowing yourself to forgive yourself for things that maybe you feel badly about that didn't go quite the right way, but it's
Mhm.
okay because you're a human being and we all are fallible and we make mistakes, right?
Mhm.
So what do we do with those mistakes? How do we learn from our mistakes and grow from those mistakes? And growth, that's, we usually have to fail at
Yeah.
something to have growth really, change who we are and how we see the world. And then, as much as you can, as I think I've referenced it already, in just my experience, seeing that world through your child's eyes as best you can. And it's
Yeah.
not easy to do. And if you can't do it, you can't do it. But it's just being about being sensitive and
Mhm.
compassionate to what they're going through, right?
Yeah.
All
Mhm.
these things are really easy to say.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
when I work with parents, I talk about that this is the goal, this is how I work, and you don't have to get there for a long time.
Yeah.
As long as you're open to it,
Mhm.
then you're allowing it to start to infiltrate
Yeah.
in how you're thinking. And I've seen it work with parents who arriving at this one house and kid was just jumping on his bed upstairs and coming through the roof and
Mhm.
the screaming that was going on and the reactions all that time. And then over time watching that change, the screaming wasn't happening as much And then the bed jumping wasn't happening as much. There was no perfect miracle to any of this stuff. There's no perfect formula. You'll be able to reduce behaviors, hopefully, and through behavior modification, through your approach, sometimes you need medication. It's just the way
Hmm.
it is, and it can be dangerous. I mean, there can be kids that are on the edge, and you have to be really careful.
Yeah.
And I think that you need to be able to, I think you need to know how to protect yourself when you have kids that do have some violent tendencies. And you also have to know when to make the right call, which is very difficult on what to do. So you
Hmm.
go to your doctor, you go to your therapist. These are all really important, not to try to figure all this stuff out on your own.
Yeah.
Just listen to the professionals that you respect because everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
They can completely mess with your head.
Hmm.
And one mom, she had a boy very emotionally involved, and every time you met her, she was doing or thinking something else because somebody else had just got into her head. So
Hmm.
she was just spinning, and that's really dangerous. So
Yeah.
know who you respect and who you're willing to listen to, and what makes sense to you. You know your kid the best. Bottom
Hmm.
so you are the best advocate for your child,
Yeah.
right? Everybody else can have their opinions, but bottom line, you know that child. And so you speak up for that child. And it can be draining, but it's a forever fight.
Yeah.
And if you accept that it's a forever fight, it becomes part of the routine as well.
Yeah.
So finding that time, also finding the time for respite for yourself. That
Hmm.
is something that, a lot of parents laugh at it because it's like, well, when am I supposed to find time?
Yeah.
But literally 20 minutes, 10 minutes, just go to the bathroom, put on music, go to the bathroom, read,
Hmm.
breathe, do something, take a little walk,
Yeah.
a little yoga, even if you can't get out of the house. These are things that can, if you do it with intention, you say, I'm planning to do this. If everything works out in your day and there's no upheaval, then try to stick to a routine. Maybe that'll be better if you have a routine for when I'm going to do my respite time.
Hmm.
Support groups, really important. People who are going through experiencing what you're experiencing, just to be able to talk to them. Really, really critical. And I know it's not easy for parents to get out
Yeah.
to those things. That's my hope is to start a remote support group. I know that they exist, and I would like to start one as well.
Yeah.
I tried to start one in my town. It just didn't take off. I just think it's hard for people to get out. I change days, times. It's just difficult. I think the good thing is that there are SEPTAs out there and places like that
Hmm.
people like myself can go and speak at and try to, make some inroads with people. But those type of places where you have parental, like peer support is
Hmm.
really, really important.
Yeah.
Don't isolate. Don't
Yeah.
isolate yourself because it's easy to do and it's
Hmm.
easy to get very, very down. And there's a lot to celebrate with our kids. You
Hmm.
know, there's the downside to the emotional part, there's the guilt, there's the emotion, there's the stress, there's all that stuff. But then there's the really good stuff, there's the connection to your child that you have, that love that comes and that connection and having them respond to you. And that's with everybody.
Yeah.
That's with everybody. I have a client very, very involved, but man, he is one of the best kids. I love this kid, and he can't really express. He can't express orally, verbally, any which way through computer, but he hugs you, and sometimes he smile, and you get to him,
Yeah.
and he relies on you, and he trusts you, and that is an amazing experience that I've been saying I've been wanting to stop working with kids all these years, but every time I meet a new kid, I'm just like, "Ah, man, if
Yeah.
I quit, I wouldn't have met you?"
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
So, and then these families too. I've met some amazing families, but there's joy and, there's things to celebrate. There's milestones to celebrate. The slightest win
Yeah.
is something to celebrate. And I
Yeah.
think, keep that stuff in mind because that's the stuff, that's where the rich things are, and that's where the rewards are.
Yeah. On top of everything else you do, you decided to start a website and podcast called Special Ed Rising. What was the inspiration for that? Why did you decide to go in this direction? And can you tell me how you came up with the name?
I can answer all those things in
Fantastic.
2 notes. Yeah. During COVID, well, maybe step back a second. I'm going to come up with the word, I'm going to talk about the word rising as the initial inspiration for a lot of all of this stuff that's followed. When I left my job after 30 years, it was kind of like a point in my life where I needed to decide what was going to happen next. And it was an inflection point in my life.
Yeah.
And I was driving my car and the Bruce Springsteen song The Rising came on the radio. So I listened to that. And I'm a huge Bruce Springsteen fan. That song is very poignant, significant, not one of my favorite songs to listen to. But what happened is that when I got to the next light, after maybe listening to a couple of minutes, somebody walked down the street with a bag and it said Rise on it. And so I'm listening to The Rising. I see this bag, says Rise, and I'm in this point of like, what am I going to do now? And I went for an interview. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll still try to work in with the deaf. I'll be an assistant just for a
Mhm.
little bit of time. And I needed some time to finish out. I thought I needed time to finish out to get my years in retirement. Turned out I didn't, um, which was great. But what happened was on my way to that job interview, I wasn't listening to the radio at all. As soon as I turned into the parking lot, I turned on the radio and The Rising came on.
Mm.
So I said, okay, so this is telling me something.
Yeah.
So this is about rising to the next step in my life, right? Rising up above whatever I'm trying to overcome in life, all those different things it became a metaphor for. And so anything that I was looking into doing or anything that became an endeavor after that, I always kind of called it rising. I had I worked with a student and I had to create a flyer for this student through this equal opportunity employment agency. And so I called, and we were going to be working on art. I was going to teach her how to paint. And so
Mhm.
I called it the rising art, and so everything had the rising in it. What happened was during COVID, I was taking care of my parents who were both ill, and it was an intense couple of years. And I needed something to do to keep my sanity a little bit. And I felt like I couldn't go out beyond where my comfort zone was at that point and start something new because the world wasn't available at that point,
Yeah.
right? So I had to dig into what I knew. So I reflected upon the idea of starting a website and what I could offer in it. And so I just went for it. I started the website and I thought that I could maybe use it to be a platform for families, parents to I could share information with them. I could talk about strategies. I could be an advocate for them. I could try to talk about, even before I got into the whole mindful thing, just talk about them and their importance in their own life and
Mhm.
how they fit into that equation in the family. And so I started blogging. I got the website up and I started blogging, and I just was taking things from my life experience as a teacher. And that was a way of sharing and kind of going through my life to see what it was that I had accumulated as far as knowledge and what I could offer. And it was kind of a recounting of my life too, because I was able to really appreciate what I was a part of. And that became bigger for me because I wanted to now reach more people. And I felt like, you have a small website and a blog, a billion people have those things, and who's going to know about it? And so as COVID was winding down, I decided to do a podcast. I was supposed to start a podcast with another friend who had to drop out for her own reasons. And we basically got all the equipment and we were like about a week away from starting our first episode. And it all fell flat right as COVID was beginning. So I'm like, I have it all. So let's give it a shot. And
Mhm.
I just dove in. And I have a friend named Jen Schneider. And she, she helped me climb over the initial hurdles and even helped me with my website. So I want to give a shout out to her wherever she is and
Wherever she may be. I don't
wherever
know.
she may be. I think that she's only being half seen these days.
Hiding behind a microphone,
Microphone.
metaphorically and
And
physically.
it's crazy.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I do. You helped me get off the ground with that stuff, and it was a huge change in my life, a huge thing to dive into because I was hesitant to put myself out there too because everybody's got something. There's a lot of knowledgeable people. There's a lot of people that have more knowledge in the field than me, but I knew what I brought to the table. I
Yeah.
was basically kind of just I felt like I was a natural teacher and communicator. I wasn't a teacher who was like so into like the crossing the I's and dotting the T's. And I
Mhm.
see because even that. And
Yes, I know.
so
That's exactly how it works.
it's exactly how it works. And so I was really more about the energy of the interaction, the human interaction. And I think we might have spoken that a little bit about that earlier.
Hmm.
So I said, I have that to bring to the table. And I
Yeah.
found that through working with parents, that was something that they recognized too. They felt that I could be a calming influence for them, which made me happy. And I could
Hmm.
also share and keep them in a place of not freaking out.
Yeah.
And so the podcast then took over the blog. The blog kind of died away. I threw some scripts in there every once in a while, and I may try to pick it up again. But the blog became the podcast, and then the podcast grew. And the initial intention of the podcast was to, again, be like the website, share stories, share strategies, support the
Hmm.
families. And as I got more bold at reaching out to strangers online through social media, I found that it was actually not that difficult to do, and people actually responded and wanted to share.
Yeah.
And so I am now, as of today, I am about to record, I think, my 149th, 48th or 49th episode in the
Amazing.
that I've been doing it. And
Yay.
so many of those turned out to be interviews
Hmm.
as opposed to the original content that I was creating the first year, where I had a smattering of interviews. Now it's predominantly interviews where I throw a smattering of my own content in there. And and that's usually like a third of the time, third of the amount of listening time. I've met some amazing people. I've learned so much. I have friends now around the world and around the country. They've changed my life, and we've been able to benefit each other because I'm able to be a platform for them, and then they can, help advertise my existence on their websites and things like that in their business. But more than that, it's just that I've had the opportunity to reach more people, and
Hmm.
through the website, I wasn't able to do that. My amazing niece offered to recreate my website for me,
Yeah.
and she just did. And we just updated it and released it a couple of weeks ago, and I feel like it's way more accessible. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted it to be more professional. I am offering not only the things that I've spoken about, I'm offering parent training that we've spoken about earlier, and this is a way for people to see what I can offer. It has access to the way I approach working with families. It has access to the podcast. It's got resources, and so I think it's a really beneficial website that I hope more people will take a look at. I've gotten some good feedback about the update. People are liking it. And so that's exciting to me because my niece put a lot of work into it, and I
Hmm.
appreciate all that work, but I feel like I'm being represented now in a way that I've been wanting to be represented. When I did the website initially, and you were helping me with like some changes and stuff, but I wasn't real seasoned at it, so it needed more work, and I couldn't ask you to do more because you had a little bit some things going on in your life, but I was always appreciative of what you could offer, and
Yeah.
so now I think it's a better option for people. I think it's something that they can interact with and utilize, and I'd be more than happy to work with people if they want to reach out and work with me with the parent training, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah. I would just like to say that it is very exciting to see you 149 episodes into the podcast. Like, that's crazy. Thinking about like where it started and, going back and forth about it and should I do it and how should I approach it and maybe I'll try this and this. And you continue to have really amazing people on as guests, and your knowledge was already very plentiful and helpful to so many people, but now that you've been able to expand on that and bring in other resources and other people with their own personal experiences or their educational experiences, it's been awesome to see the growth of the podcast over time, and it's been very exciting to watch your journey with it all.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You were there at the beginning, so you knew you knew the person who was very hesitant to do this.
But
Um,
I think that's it, right? Like, so many people are when they're thinking of, first of all, starting anything new, and especially something like a blog or website or podcast. it's scary to put yourself out there. It's especially for you who doesn't love social media. There's a lot tied into it where you kind of have to throw it all out there and go all in with it. But it's once you do, it's pretty cool. And like you said, you've gotten to meet so many more amazing people and make new friends, and it's all really great to see.
Well, you were a reason. I mean, you encouraged me with the social media, and you knew that I was fighting it. So I'm grateful. I
I was
mean,
like, you have to put yourself out there.
you're right. I mean, I'm way more comfortable now. In fact, now I remember the first time it happened, somebody actually reached out to me to request to come on my podcast, and I was like, "What?
What?
How did you
What?
find me?"
Is this real? What?
And now it happens quite a bit, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm going to be going on someone else's podcast very soon who was just on mine as we
Yeah.
help each other out. And I think it's just the coolest thing because you meet these really cool people that have, I don't know, I think when you're on a podcast, there's a part of you that is comfortable with being out in the world, even though you may deny it. You know, you kind of you want to be seen, and this is an avenue, and
Yeah.
you have to kind of just accept the fact that you're going to be seen, you're going to be looked at, you're going to be critiqued, all that kind of stuff, and who cares,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
I
Yep.
am who I am. You like me, you don't like me, it's all fine. But
Yeah.
if I can help a family, it's the thing everybody says. If I can help five families, I mean, it doesn't have to be everybody, but my gosh, the trickle down when you help some and then they can help others after they've helped themselves, then the work continues. And so, it doesn't have to be something that I'm immediately connected to. And
Yeah.
that's really satisfying. And when people come back, like former students or parents, and they come back and they have positive remembrances of the time we were together, there's no better reward than that. And
Yeah.
so my hope is that with the podcast, as it builds, it's still modest. I'm averaging closer to 300 listeners a month,
Yeah.
which is big for me. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping, the more I go on other people's podcasts, it'll continue to grow because I feel like it's a worthy subject to be talking about.
For sure.
It
Yeah.
became not just working, sharing with parents strategies and things like that. It also became a kind of an advocacy program for the disabled community and for disabled people, and having people come on my show to share their stories has been very profoundly impacting on me. I grew up with my uncle who was a paraplegic, so I was exposed at an early age to a different lifestyle and a different way of looking at people and situations, and it seemed normal to me, I mean, and that's what I hope the podcast can is I hope that's one of the impacts it can have, is to let us all see each other just as we are and accept us just as we are, because we all have something to offer no matter what. And we all have our own hidden disabilities. We all have things going on. And
Yeah.
so we have to be able to continue to give each other that space and invite everybody into the playing field. And my concern is, of late, with the political situation, that people are being pushed out of that. And,
Mm.
DEI impacts people with disabilities quite a bit. And there's just so many things that I also have it's attempting to be a once a month episode, Special Ed Rising, because the title is Special Ed Rising, No Parent Left Behind, which I remember
Mhm.
you saying, it's really kind of long. And, and I went
Mm.
back and forth with it, but I'm like, I really want that in there,
Yeah.
And I could have called it one or the other, but I'm like, so what? Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And some people call it Special Ed Rising, and some people call it No Parent Left Behind, or some
Yeah.
people call the whole thing. So they go with whatever they do, and that's fine. And once a month, I decided, when things started to change politically and this new big beautiful bill was happening, and all these changes that are going to be coming down the pike for people with disabilities and other people that are in poverty situations and are just sick or whatever, not in good positions financially, that need help. I decided to do a once a month episode more on disability politics. So I call that Special Ed Rising Purge 47, which is, I guess you understand what that means. You understand what that means. My whole point is that I want to try to share information so people can make their own choices. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm
Mhm.
saying this is what is being reported. This is what the potentialities are, and I want you to be educated on it, because I don't think we're all obviously not listening to the same sources. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we get fed what we want these days.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's just like boutique news.
Mhm. Right. Yeah.
So I want to be able to touch on things like, when RFK came out talking about autism and the way he came out talking about autism, I wanted to be able to address that.
Yeah.
And the big, beautiful bill, obviously, and the way it's going to be impacting the disabled community as far as their health insurance goes. The
Mhm.
number of people are going to be losing their health insurance services. States aren't necessarily going to be having the funds enough to be able to cover all the services. SNAP program, right?
Mhm.
My gosh, all these people that don't have or not that are food insecure, and they're going to be really, really in dire straits as a result of that.
Yeah.
So, we could go on and on about that stuff, but it's something that's important to me. So I wanted to make that, I felt like it was important for me because I'm always somebody that has spoken up about injustice. And I feel like I need to, if I'm going to talk about it or I'm going to
Mhm.
feel that way, I need to do something. And so for me, this is a way to do something in trying
Yeah.
to help people.
You're continuing to educate.
Right, exactly. You can go out and stand and protest, but there's only so much that can get you. You got to be able to, I feel like you have to be able to get involved more. So this is a way for me to
Yeah.
be involved. I hope it helps people and understand and I want people to understand that yes, there's political differences and all that kind of stuff. And I have my own feelings and there are obviously strong feelings. But the bottom line is I just want people to be informed as best they can be.
Yeah.
And you can believe what I'm putting out there or not. I source everything, so it's not like I'm making any of this stuff up, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily opinion. Every once in a while, though, I guess that fits in there, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's mostly based on fact.
Yeah. And there is so much out there. And so it is helpful, especially as you've built your own community with the podcast and your listeners see what you're able to put out there and how you're educating and how you're sharing other people's stories. This is just another way to do that. You're providing resources and education on what is happening that might be getting lost in the news feed or might not be shown on one channel versus another or whatever it is.
Right.
You're continuing to educate, which is a positive thing. Yeah.
I think so too.
You mentioned before what you hope the impact of your website and the podcast has on all the communities you're a part of at this point. And that was going to be one of my questions. If someone is visiting your site or listening to your podcast, what do you really hope they walk away from that with? Is it an understanding? Is it a sense of community? Is it those things and more? You tell me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of all inclusive, but I do think that I want people to feel that there is a place for them to go to that is empathetic and understanding and open to what they're experiencing and is wanting to hear their story and wanting to help them. So yes, a place of kind of solace in that sense. Um, Also a place to get information and one where people can share. I want to hear their stories too. That's why I really enjoy when a parent or a person dealing with a family member or whoever, or the disabled person themselves can come on my show and share their experience because that's the stuff I want people to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel for you out there. And especially at the beginning, parents are so overwhelmed. While there's a plethora of information out there, it's not necessarily easily put together or understood. And to be able to organize all that when you're under this new experience, you feel like you're kind of under the water and you're just grasping and you're trying to stay afloat. There are people out there, such as myself and other advocates are out there that are wanting to help put the pieces, puzzle pieces together for you. And so you're not alone. And maybe I'm a step towards something.
Mhm.
Maybe I can be the person that helps you get to where you want to go, or maybe I can be the person that starts you off and then you get a little confident and then you can maybe, go to the next phase, maybe you find somebody else. I'm not saying I'm the be all end all. I'm saying that I have things to offer. I've got a plan, I've got a system that I can offer you. And that's what I want people to take away from that there is help out there. There is community And I want to actually, one of my couple of my intentions is to start live streaming so I can have guests on with live streams so we can start building the community that way. And then also to offer potentially at some point kind of like a group meeting support kind of thing. And I need probably somebody with some knowledge like you who can help together. But so the live streaming and then the sharing. I had tried to do a parent support group locally, and I mentioned that, and this is a way to do it where I can have more people, and it's more convenient for people because getting outside your house and getting somewhere, I realize maybe this is the better way to go. So that's something that I'm hoping for down the pike, but definitely live streaming is the next thing I want to do. I have some guests that are excited to do it, and so we'll be getting on that in the next couple of weeks, I think.
That's cool. That's very exciting. You actually answered pretty much the last two questions I had for you in that. So way to go. Way to go with that.
You got it. I just want people to know that the help is here. I
Yeah.
really want to reiterate that help is here, and you're not alone. And there are resources, and I can direct you to resources. I can help direct you to resources if I'm not the resource that you want or is filling that gap that you need. I can certainly help you. I'm more than happy to do research for people and find them what they need. That's part of it. Part of the parent training thing is
Hmm.
just kind of sharing information if that's what you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, and tune into the podcast and tell people about it, and rate and review, as they say.
So the website is specialedrising.com. The podcast is Special Ed Rising, No Parent Left Behind, which is a fine title, and you can call it either or both.
Thank
All
you.
that works. As long as you're listening, that's all that matters.
Right,
Where
that's
can
right.
people find you on social media and connect with you there?
Well, one thing I also want to add is that I have a YouTube channel, so you can go on, and I haven't posted all my interviews on there because I felt like at the beginning that might be taking away from the podcast. So I was posting clips,
Hmm.
and there are some episodes that I put up entirely, and I will continue to do things like that. And that's a place where you can see what's going on a little bit. Social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Special Ed Rising. I'm also under my name, but that's more of like the private page, but I'm making it more public now, but because of you. Yeah.
It's your fault.
Instagram, TikTok. I think those are the only ones. I think that's it.
It's a good covering there. A
Yeah,
little,
those are the
yeah,
major. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, I
Okay.
appreciate you taking not 1 day, but 2 days to chat with me all about special ed rising and your background and the plethora of knowledge you have.
Let me just say that any extra time spent with you is time loved and appreciated and grateful for. So I don't get enough. And so I'm really happy to sit down and talk to you as long as you want.
We live 5 minutes away from each other, and this is how we talk more often than.
It's remarkable when we never see each other.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Just My Mom Sense podcast. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Just My Mom Sense and visit justmymomsense.com for past vlogs and a few of my favorite things. Music for this podcast was produced by Matt Harvey.